Now that the car is sitting at a stock rear height, let's put some lowered rear leaf springs in here and see if we can't shorten up that gap a little bit. What's up guys, my name is Andy, and in this video, we're gonna take the stock leaf springs off my 66 Fastback, and we're gonna replace them with some lowered rear leaf springs. In the last video that I had done, I replaced the shackles in the rear. Somebody had put taller shackles in there to raise the car. I wanna lower the car. And so we replaced those. We got the car down to stock height, but I wanna take it down another inch or so more. And so what I did is I purchased some mid-eye rear leaf springs. In fact, this is what they look like. And they call them mid-eye because this, if you take this as kind of the middle spot, it goes right through the center bolt hole here. And in these, there's regular springs where this comes around and it just curls down right here. And there's mid-eye where it kind of comes up like this. And there's reverse eye where it coils this way and goes around on top. And that reverse eye would give you a 2-inch drop. These mid-eyes are supposed to give you a 1-inch drop, but I don't think we need anything more than 1-inch drop, but we'll see. And also, these are 4.5 leaf springs. In the previous Mustang that I was working on, I went with a 5 leaf rear spring, and I was trying to get a little bit stiffer spring rate, a little more sporty kind of feel to it, and but it was almost too stiff. The back end kind of felt a little bouncy a little bit. I mean, it might have been a combination of the shock that I had on there as well, but I didn't need that stiff of a spring. So I had read that this 4.5 leaf is a good compromise. It still gives you that stiffer performance if you're looking for it, but it's not too harsh of a ride. So let's get these put on there and then see how it comes out. Did anybody else notice that this nut wasn't on there either? Yeah, I just noticed that too. That's awesome. Oh well, we got new hardware for that. And I did check, and the nut's on the other side, so at least we're good there. All right, the secret to doing this is taking this lower base plate off. This plate connects the rear leaf springs to the axle. It also holds the bottom of the strut, or the shock for the rear. So we'll take all 4 of those nuts off the U-bolts. We'll take that off there, drop this bracket, and then we'll come back and we'll do the shackle bolts that we just did in the last video. We'll take that off so we can begin to lower this leaf down, and then we'll go back and we'll attack that bolt up in the front, the one that's missing the nut. When we take this bracket off, the axle is just sitting on the leaf, but before we disassemble the leaf from the car, we need to support this axle with the jack, because the jack will want to pull the leaf down into your face, and you don't want that to happen. So we'll have to be mindful of that when we get there, but let's get this off first. Normally we would have taken this nut off, but since it just wasn't here, we can go ahead and try to drive this pin out to take this leaf off. Alright guys, I have been working on this bolt for a couple hours. I cannot get this thing out. What I suspect is the sleeve that's inside this bushing is maybe rusted to the bolt or something, and that's why I can't get the bolt to go out. So we're gonna have to resort to cutting it. That's the only thing that's left. You can tell that there's a lot of underlayment, undercoating or whatever that was done. Hopefully that it's not interfering with anything, but This is kind of a last-ditch effort. On my last Mustang, I was able to just knock these bolts right out, and it wasn't a problem. But with this one, I think we're gonna have to get the Sawzall and cut them out. So here we go. All right, guys, we got it cut, got it free. So now we can go ahead and we just drop we can drop this jack, and that will drop that. There we go. So it looks like, just I was thinking that the bolt that was in there got rusted to the metal sleeve that's inside there, and that was spinning, and because that's a larger diameter than the bolt hole, I couldn't pull the bolt out. So anyways, all right, so now that we got that off of there, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. All right, guys, here's a comparison of the two different springs, and you can see this is the standard eye, the way that it wraps around, and then the mid eye, how it comes across the middle here. This is the bolt that I had to cut. Look at how rusted, and that thing, it was toast. And this thing that bolt is seized up inside that sleeve, so I can't get the bolt through when it does that, so that's why you gotta cut it. So we got it cut, we're good. What we want to do now is we're going to go ahead and put some new bushings in here, and then we can load this. What we'll do is we'll load the front end in first, put the bolt in there, put the nut on, and then we'll pivot this thing up and put this into the shackle on the back, and then we'll come back to the middle here and bolt this bracket back up underneath there. And we got some new U-bolts to put in there, and we'll put it all together. We're gonna go ahead and leave this loose for now. We'll get everything in place, and then we'll come back and we'll tighten this up. All right, as we put this in place, you don't wanna forget that we need to put the brand new bushings on here and grease them up and get them in place. Also, don't forget to put the new bushing up here inside the car. So we've got that one in there. We got one that goes inside the leaf back here, and then these two. And get everything all greased up and put together, and it'll make it easier when you're putting this all in together. And it's just as easy as that, putting that in there. If we didn't have all that grease stuff, it would have been a bigger fight to get that together. All right, now that we got the shackles in and the front bolt in, we can go ahead and put this bracket back up here. And it's kind of one of those things that you have to remember which way it goes. It goes this way, but before we do that, we need to put this washer and this bushing on here. Then we can put that in there like so. There we go. Even I had it backwards. Make sure you put this bushing the right way. The bigger circle fits inside here like so. I got some new U-bolts. I actually got them a 1/2 inch longer than the stock ones. The stock ones that we have were bad anyways. But the reason why I got 1/2 inch longer is partly because you got an extra 1/4 inch in the new leaf springs, but also if I ever want to lower this car a little bit more, I've got that extra length in the bolt, and that's what we're gonna need. All right, guys, that is done. We got that side on there. You probably saw that I took the wheel off. It just makes it easier to get to everything. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. I'm gonna spare you the pain of watching all that, and we'll come back when I get the other side done. All right, guys, I just wanted to point this out real quick. I got this other side cut out. I had to cut the bolt on both sides Because the problem again, this bolt is getting stuck inside that eyelet, or inside this bushing inside there. So I have to cut both sides of the of the bolt to get this thing to drop out of there. And this is what it looks like up inside. So cutting along here, and I had to cut along this side here, and it's just a lot of work. If you had a lift, it's a lot easier, but trying to do this on the garage floor, you just don't have a lot of space to get the Sawzall in there. Yeah, I went through several blades trying to get this done. In fact, this thing's still hot. And then in the end, I used this carbide blade. I don't know if you guys can see that, but anyways, that's what did it. I found that the longer blades, because they're so long, they would bind up when you're trying to cut in there. So these shorter ones, I think this is a 6-inch. These ones did most of the work. So yeah. All right, guys, we got everything in. We got the passenger side in, driver's side in. Everything's looking good. Everything's tightened up in here. I think we can go ahead and drop the car and see how it came out. Well, guys, we're done. We got the new springs in, but that doesn't look any lower. Let me show you something. So I didn't show it in the beginning of the video, but I measured 26.5 inches from the last video when we did the shackles. 26.5 inches. We're sitting about 26 1/8. So we dropped 3/8 of an inch for a 1-inch set of lowering springs. However, I do have air shocks in the back, and I was just messing around with it, trying to let the air out, make sure that they weren't pumped up or something like that. I disconnected the air from the Schrader valve. Nothing. They didn't even move. So I don't even know if there was anything in them. I can get them to compress. But they're not sucking up inside, so I don't know if they're just faulty or that's how they sit. I don't know enough about air shocks. So I'm gonna have to, well, I was gonna put in some rear shocks anyway. So we're gonna replace those, get some rear shocks in there, some regular ones, and see if that changes it. If it doesn't, I'm gonna need more drop than that. So we may have to do some spacers. I've got some 1-inch blocks that I've had from before. I don't know if I want to go that far down. I'm thinking maybe a 1/2 inch. So we'll see how it comes out. I'm glad I didn't do the reverse eye leaves, so we had 2 inches of drop, although that would have looked better. That's not what I wanted. So I think for now, we'll just leave it. I'll get the new shocks put in there, and then we'll see if we need to do something like this. So the only thing I did want to cover on this too is cutting those rear leaves out, cutting those bolts. You guys might have a better way of doing that. I've heard about people putting a sleeve over the head of that bolt, welding another bolt onto the head of that, and then you can back it out. And I think if you can break that rust loose inside the bolt that's inside that sleeve, you might be able to pull the bolt out. I don't have that ability, plus the exhaust is in the way, so trying to get up in there and doing that kind of stuff, I just didn't have the room. Maybe if I had a lift, I could do that, but while it takes a long time, it does work. You just need to be careful that you don't cut the sheet metal of the frame of the car and like that. You do have to be careful. There's a mounting tab, and then there's the frame of the car that bushing or the end of that leaf spring sits inside there. So you just got to be real careful when you're cutting in there. It takes a lot of patience, and I went through several blades trying to get that to work. In fact, it's a whole nother day. I was working on it last night and had to finish it today. So there's the rear leaf springs. Not where I wanted to be with respect to the front, but I did want to get those out of there, and I'm glad I got those old ones out of there. Those old bolts were rusted in there. Now I've got new fresh springs in there. If I ever need to service anything, I know everything will come right out, and we'll be good to go there. So, all right, guys, that takes care of that. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and if you subscribe, I'd appreciate it because it helps my channel. All right, we'll see you in the next one.